Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to go through some of the niche picks from the Grand Champions Festival. I want to talk about some Pokémon that were underused and performed a bit well, so you can get a better grasp on how to use some of those niche picks. First of all, let's talk about some picks that do not work. A prime example is Machamp. It's a slow Pokémon that hits hard, but currently doesn't have access to one of its best abilities, which is Guts. In general, Machamp has been power crept through the years, but it's a Pokémon that, on paper, looks pretty decent, but doesn't offer those results. If we take a closer look at those team seats, you will see Quick Claw with No Guard, Dynamic Punch, Stone Edge, Ice Punch, Bullet Punch, decent coverage. Here, Dynamic Punch, Stone Edge, Wide Guard, Protect. This is a nice tech, having Wide Guard is always nice. Here, Scope Lens with Cross Chop, Stone Edge, Bullet Punch, Wide Guard. Here, Cross Chop, Wide Guard, Stone Edge, Bullet Punch. As you can see, people have kind of figured out what Machamp can do, but still, it's not good enough for this meta. Psychic coverage is all around, Fairies are really dominant, Sylveon, Floette and stuff like that, so Machamp being that slow doesn't really have a place in this meta. It's okay to have an idea of how to use something, but after using it, you can quickly realize that it's not it. So this is a prime example that it's fine to drop an idea sometimes. Here I want to talk about Rampardos. We had 4 teams using it, only one saw success, and we can see what different did they do. The successful team used White Herb with Sheer Force, Rock Slide, Iron Head, Hammer Arm, Protect. It's used in Trick Room, so you can abuse the slow speed. You have Rock Slide for the Charizards, you have Iron Head for the Fairies, you have Hammer Arm for King Gambit. White Herb also helps to not get intimidated. On the other teams you will see a Choice Scarf not in Trick Room, a Trick Room team with Focus Sash, and another Trick Room team with Bright Powder and Surf Dry Skin. This is a really big cook overall. As you can see, we have a Mega Sableye with Poison Jab, a Runerigus. This team in general wasn't that prepared. This team had a plan, which is Trick Room with Mega Meganium or Mega Scizor under Rain, and you have the Rampardos, which you can use in Trick Room or out of Trick Room with Focus Sash. It's a bit ambitious as a concept, and there is a bit too much cooking in it. Usually when you're going for a niche pick, you will notice that the most successful teams are the ones that found a use for it on an already existing team. This is another crazy cook with Weirdish, Anaconda and Hisuian Navalu. The Choice Scarf here enables you to use the Rampardos outside of Trick Room, but the speed is so low that the Choice Scarf doesn't really put it in a decent speed tier. This is a prime example on how to use a niche pick. This is a team with Uranguru, Torkoal, Camerupt. Basically it's Trick Room with Instruct, Mousehold and Hattern. This 5-man core, this 5-man group, whatever you want to call it, is a tried group. We know these 5 work together. So you throw Rampardos here to cover some of the weaknesses and make some of the matchups better. Rampardos has an attack stat of 165 base. So we know that Rampardos will hit really hard in those conditions. And if Intimidate cannot push it down because you have White Herb, it is gonna stay and do a lot of damage. Also the rock typing is pretty nice here, because you get a strong stab or rock slide from 165 base attack, and any coverage move you have, even though it will lack the stab, it will still hit really hard. On top of that, all your moves gain a 30% increase. You remove the flinch from the rock slide and the Iron Head as an example, and they hit 30% harder. So having a rock slide from 165 base attack plus 30% increase from Sheer Force plus your rock stab is gonna do a lot of damage. So this is a really nice example of how to use a niche pick, understanding the role and understanding what counterplay there is to it, and that is pretty much what I want to talk about today. The next pick I want to talk about is Slurpuff. We have this team, which was topped early. It's a hard Trick Room team with Mega Chimecho, and we're using the Slurpuff with Sweet Veil, Draining Kiss, Protect, Ion Wish. The set itself is not that bad, but the Pokémon ain't that great. If you notice the stats on Slurpuff, you will see that it's a really middling Pokémon in everything. It doesn't have much going on for it. Also having Sweet Veil with leftovers doesn't really do much. So the other way it was used, in kind of a better success, is Citrus Berry with Unburden. You have String Shot. If you're not familiar with the move String Shot, it lowers the target speed by 2 stages, which is enough to normalize the speed after Tailwind on an opposing Pokémon. So we're using it as a fast support in a fast team. We have the Helping Hand for whatever we have next to us. We have String Shot to lower the speed of opposing Pokémon, and Dazzling as a generic chip. When we eat our citrus, we actually become fast ourselves. This team in general did some cooking with Swords Dance King Gambit with Black Glasses, Kata Sucker Punch, and the Choice Scarf Intimidate Hippowdon Arcanine. The next Pokémon I want to talk about is Passimian. There are few people out there who really like Passimian. One of them is Eddie. Eddie used Passimian in a different way. The most common Passimian build you will see is Defiant, with Citrus, Focus Sash, here we have a Hardstone for better Rock Slides, and Choice Scarf. But Eddie saw this Pokémon and saw something different in it, and that is Receiver. Before this tournament I had a similar idea. Basically you're using a self-destruct Starmie next to the White Herb Receiver Passimian, you blow up turn 1 and you pass the huge power of Mega Starmie on the Passimian with Close Combat, Feint and Knockoff. That means you have good coverage, you stop protects with Feint, and you get another way to get Torkoal on the field. Because basically you can go Trick Room turn 1, self-destruct turn 2, pass the huge power to Passimian, get Torkoal out and start going to town. It's a pretty creative set, but it's a really nice concept of understanding everything your team does. And here we see another Uranguru with Psychic Terrain next to Hattern Expanding Force. So I really like the idea here. Next Pokemon I want to talk about is Morpeko. I have a team on my builder that I have used on National Dex doubles with Morpeko and Chikorita with Eviolite that was used as a joke on a tournament, which did okay. What Morpeko offers to those teams is a fake out. And any fake out Pokemon can find its way in on a Trick Room team. Orawil and Knockoff are here to offer some damage to Morpeko. Depending on the form you are, you gain a stab Knockoff or stab Orawil. The person who used this team has also made a video about it, so I'm gonna post it on the description if you want to go a bit deeper into it. But the whole concept is really interesting and it has basically a dual mode with Speed Boost, Serpedo and Vanillex with Choice Scarf and a Trick Room on the other end. So basically you can go Incineroar, Farigiraf, Meganium, Morpeko and have a decent Trick Room team mode, or you can go Serpedo, Vanillex plus Incineroar, Morpeko or Farigiraf and have a decent speedy mode. This whole concept is really interesting and I'm happy that Kaguya did as good as he did. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is Mudsdale. I believe Mudsdale has some room in this meta, but it's kinda hard to fit into teams. The best way to use it is obviously Trick Room because the speed is really low on this Pokemon. But it does have Inner Focus, which prevents Intimidates from lowering your attack. It also prevents flinches. And I think in a better constructed team, Mudsdale would be decent here. If anything, I would change the Trick Room Shatter and the Frostlass into something more fitting. A different way to use this Pokemon is a Stamina build with Body Press, High Horsepower, Rock Slide. And also Mudsdale has access to Iron Defense. So you can make some sort of a wall, probably drop the Rock Slide if your team doesn't need it, and add an Iron Defense, which would make this Pokemon be a pseudo Mega Aggron. Ground typing is okay. You suffer into rain, you suffer into snow, especially since Mega Frostlass will be immune to your Body Press, but in the rest of the matchups it can work. The next Pokemon I want to talk about, that I believe is kinda undervalued right now, is Rotom Mow. There are stuff that you want to hit with a Leaf Storm, and also there are stuff that you want to hit with a Thunderbolt that are next to a Sinistcha. If you're not familiar, Grass-type Pokemon are immune to Powder moves, that includes Rage Powder. So you have a Leaf Storm that can go directly into Blastoise next to a Sinistcha as an example. Leaf Storm deals about 90% to a bulky Milotic, and also you're neutral to Rock Slide, which is pretty valuable in this meta. If you pair the Rotom with the right support or in the right team, I believe it can be quite good. I have already covered in a different video how I like Rotom Mow into some Floet teams, and I believe the Como Scizor is also a really nice combination with it. And also Rotom Mow makes a really nice core of Incineroar, Rotom, Basculegion, Incineroar, Rotom, Pelipper. So you have your Grass, Fire, Water core covered. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is kind of a fan favorite, and it's a Pokemon that in other generations wasn't that nice, especially in Generation 9 with the inclusion of Terra. Hisuian Arcanine saw a lot of play, but because in Champions currently we do not have Terra, the double weakness usually doesn't make it the best of picks. You're weak into Garchomp, you're weak into water moves, you're weak into fighting moves like Sneasler, So in general, many teams do not have the means to cover for all of the weaknesses. But I think here, especially this team, has a really nice way of using the Arcanine. Basically your Rockhead with Hearthstone, Rockslide, Headsmash, Flared Blitz and Protect. And the best way to use the Arcanine is to not bring the Arcanine itself, but to use the Zoroark. People usually try to find the on-play abilities, and if they do not go off, they assume it's Zoroark. And because you're Rockhead, you do not have an on-play ability, so even on a best of 3 scenario with open team sets, your opponent doesn't know if you're actually Arcanine or Zoroark. On closed team set, this is even more of a confusion, because your opponent doesn't even have the information that you're Rockhead. So when they say Arcanine and they do not see Intimidate, there is a high chance that you are actually Zoroark. And people will try to throw a close combat on it. They will try to fake you out and stuff like that. So having a choice scarf Zoroark with a Will-O-Wisp Psychic and Icy Wind to basically Will-O-Wisp any kind of Garchomps that might try and Earthquake, or to Psychic a Sneasler that will try to close combat you, is really nice. The rest of the team is also really nicely made, so this is a team I highly suggest to anyone. A different way we saw the Arcanine being used is on these teams. Let's put those two together because it is the same team with a different pilot, and they both did pretty good. Here we are using the Intimidate, since we do not have a Zoroark, and we use it for coverage because it gets Rock Slide, Close Combat, Flare Blitz and Extreme Speed with a Choice Scarf. What Arcanine does here is improve your Sun matchup by miles. Your only Mega here is Frostlass, and you get a Choice Scarf for Rock Slide from a decent attack stat with the Rock type stab. In general, this team is also pretty nice. It is made with type matchups in mind and a lot of coverage for the weaknesses of the rest of the Pokémon. In this team, you do pretty much the same thing. It is a Mega Frostlass team with no other Mega, and you use the Arcanine on the same concept, but instead of being Choice Scarf, you're Focusas, so you can play around a bit more stuff. It is also pretty safe switching. If you want to switch out your Palafin to enable the Zero to Hero ability, being Focusas means that you can go either into Sinistra if the conditions are right, or if every condition is wrong, you can go into Arcanine, throw an Intimidate, get your Focusas running, and enable your Palafin without losing a Pokémon. Having access to Extreme Speed is also pretty decent into Trick Room, so in general this is a really neatly made team. There are more ways on how it was used. You will see a lot of Arcanine next to Frostlass or next to Zoroark, which I believe is the two best ways to use the Pokémon. So I want to stick into Frostlass and Zoroark as the best case scenarios to use Arcanine. Here we have Aromatisse. This is a Pokémon that on paper looks decent as a Trick Room setter. Aroma Veil prevents the Pokémon with this ability and the allies from being afflicted with Taunt, Torment, Anchor, Disable, Curse Body and stuff like that. It doesn't stop Imprison, but overall it helps you or an ally next to you to set up Trick Room quite safely. This team in general is not a team I would suggest to people, because there is a bit too much cooking in it. The Slurking Crabominable is a really nice core, but the rest is a bit too much cooking. Here we have Tauros, and it's the Fire Tauros. We see two teams with an okay score. Basically, this team showed day 2, and it's using Tauros for the Will-O-Wisp. Obviously, Close Combat and Flare Blitz are good coverage moves, especially with White Herb, but Will-O-Wisp helps a lot to support Pokémon like Gardevoir, who are kinda frail. Also, if you Will-O-Wisp a physical attacker and you have an endgame of a Will-O-Wisp Pokémon against your Milotic, you're winning every time. Will-O-Wisp also helps if you burn Gambit, so your Aegislash can be a sweeper. And in general, it was one of the really good fits for a team. The Blazebeard doesn't fit into so many teams as, let's say, the Water type, so it was nice to see it included. The next Pokémon I want to talk about is Toxicroak. It's a Pokémon that has been power crept a lot, but you see it every now and then. Dry Skin can be really niche into many teams. Having access to Fake Out and Sucker Punch also makes it pretty decent. The Poison typing helps you because Poison Jab deals a decent amount of damage into Floet and other fairy types. This team used it in a Mega Meganium, Mega Rodactyl concept without Rain, which I believe is kinda better than the other team, which used Pelipper with Mega Dragonite. This is taking a bit too many weaknesses of the same type, but I really like the concept of Toxicroak in this type of team. Here we have the female Basculegion. Female Basculegion is on the radar of a lot of people, but it's never good enough. I believe the biggest turnoff for this Basculegion is the lack of a good water stab move, because the two moves you have are Surf and Muddy Water. Surf hitting your own Pokemon doesn't cut it. Muddy Water, both the spread damage reduction and the low accuracy doesn't help the case. So if you're using the female Basculegion, you're using it mostly for the Shadow Ball, and not many teams right now need the fast Choice Scarf adaptability Shadow Ball. So this is a neat idea, it's kinda float good stuff with a different Basculegion, which can work, it did kinda work, but still I believe this is a case of Basculegion being one strong water move away from being good. The two extra points I want to make about female Basculegion, which are also on the male Basculegion, so it doesn't really make it that better, but it still has access to them, is Aqua Jet, which is obviously not as strong as the male Basculegion Aqua Jet, but it is still there for you, and Icy Wind, which hits a bit better than the male Basculegion Icy Wind, obviously because you're a special attacker. But as you can see, the water type of choice here is Chilling Water, which is not good. Both because of the stat drop, which means that you're extra weak into King Gambit, and because Chilling Water is a 50 base power move. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is a Pokemon that I actually want to use, and I believe there is a spot for it in the meta. It is a Trick Room Pokemon, and it should be treated as such. The most success it saw was with Charizard Y and Venusaur. I do believe, because of the high attack stat of Rhyperior and the low speed tier, that you can do good stuff with it. It has done good stuff on previous generations. Solid Rock is a pretty decent ability. The thing that kinda holds it back right now is the lack of Assault Vest, as many other Pokemon. But having a Rock Slide and a Stab, Earthquake or High Horsepower, and access to Ice Punch can be really nice. And this is one of the best Earthquake Pokemon to use, specifically under Trick Room. So there is some potential here, but I think you need to build a bit more around Rhyperior. It's not as splashable. I believe Farigera Rhyperior in the Charizard teams is kinda limiting your choices, because for the most part you go Incineroar, Charizard, Venusaur +1, and the +1 is rarely ever Farigera, so you are usually going Milotic or Rhyperior, and Rhyperior outside of Trick Room is not that great. Obviously there are teams where you want to go Charizard, Venusaur, Farigera, Rhyperior, but it's not the best lead into like everything. The concept is really cool though. I'm pretty sure I will cook a pretty decent Rhyperior team at some point, and you will see it on the channel. The next Pokemon I want to showcase is Simipour. Also, no shame to the person who lost to this team with the triple fake out Emolga Nuzzle Air/ not even Tailwind with Cast Form and Manual Rain Dance, but this happened. I'm not gonna show their name. Here we have the Simipour, in what is a good stuff Meganium that used the best Simipour set with Flip Turn and Fake Out, which means that you can go into Incineroar to fake out Parting Shot out. And basically it was used as a budget Blastoise, budget support Blastoise, I should say. The thing you have over Blastoise is that instead of Yawn, we have Icy Wind as speed control and Scald to burn some stuff. Also with Mystic Water, Scald deals some damage, unlike the support Blastoise who only has space for Flip Turn. I am a huge supporter of the support Blastoise with Incineroar, so seeing Simipour doing pretty much the same thing actually made me happy, and I think Simipour is one of the 3 monkeys that can actually see some play. So if you want to use Simipour, this is most likely the set. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is Hisuian Goodra. The Sap Sipper Body Press Heavy Slam Protect with Shelter set with leftovers is kind of a menace. You start setting up next to Scovillain or next to Sableye, and if your opponent doesn't have a direct answer to it, it's pretty hard to catch up. If you manage to get 1 or 2 shelters without being hit, or being hit by, let's say, some spread moves that you recover with leftovers, this can be really potent. I believe you could change some stuff around and get a Sinistcha here, or you could go the full Cybertron route and change the Sableye to double screens with a Sinistcha and set up your Goodra in that way, because basically you have the same type weakness as their Chaldon, but this is a more passive team, so it is more easily exploited. The whole concept is really cool though, so I highly suggest testing this out. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is Umbreon. Umbreon is a menace on the singles tier, and it has some disruptive play on doubles. Basically, Yawn, Taunt and Foul Play with Inner Focus make it a bit hard to deal with, but it is still low on damage and a bit passive, which is why it's not used as much. But having Yawn and forcing out switches can be really disruptive even in doubles. Foul Play is okay, so even if your opponent's set up, you have something to punish them with, and Moonlight is here so you can stay around as long as possible next to your Citrus. It's not a Pokemon I would bring into many teams, but it is interesting and obviously it worked for this person. As you can see, for the rest of the teams it didn't work that well. And last but not least, we can talk a bit about the Watchdog person. This guy has also made a post about this team, I believe, and it's a team that I really like, because basically you're using the Watchdog as a Hypnosis Pokemon that has some coverage. Analytic boosts the power of your moves if you move after your target by 30%, and Watchdog has a middling speed tier. What's really interesting about Analytic is that if you target a Pokemon that is faster than you, and it faints, you still gain the Analytic bonus while hitting a different target because your target fainted, if your target was faster than you. That means that if you, let's say, target a Charizard, which is always faster than you, and then with Garchomp you kill the Charizard with a Rock Slide, the Pokemon next to Charizard will get an Analytic boosted hit. So it's a pretty fun interaction to use. And you have a lot of fast Pokemon here. Charizard is 100 base speed, which is not slow. It's not the fastest, but it's good. You have the Scarf Garchomp, and you have Mew with Focus Sash. Mew has 126 base speed. So you have 3 different Pokemon that can kinda enable your Analytic. And sometimes you can enable it on your own because a lot of Pokemon are faster than you. So it's not a bad idea. It's a weird idea, but it's something that kinda worked for this person, and I really enjoy what they try to do here. I want to also talk about Hippowdon. Hippowdon is a really interesting pick here, because basically you're using the Hippowdon as an attacker, with max hit points, max attack most likely, with Sand Force, with Iron Head, Rock Slide, High Horsepower. Sand Force boosts the Steel, Rock and Ground type moves by 30% if you're under Sand. So it's a pretty interesting combination of moves and Pokemon to support a kinda slow Pokemon. What I would like to see in this team is Trick Room. I would most likely put the Trick Room on Mimikyu, which gives you a second mode with a Tyranitar, Hippowdon, Aegislash, Mimikyu, and the fast mode with your Whimsicott, Tyranitar, Excadrill +1. Changing the Aegislash in that team could be interesting also. I think there is some potential here, and the team was just not as developed. But there is something here. So this is it for today. I just wanted to put some light on some more niche Pokemon or niche movesets, and try to give you a bit more tools to play around on the builder, because seeing the same Pokemon is not fun for anyone, and I want the metagame to develop. And I hope this offers you some more insight. Also, if anyone is interested in team building, it's something that I could dive deeper into. Team building is mostly what I like to do in Pokemon. I'm way better of a team builder than I am a player. So we could go a bit deeper into why we're choosing some Pokemon, or what's the idea behind, or some roles that some Pokemon can fill. So if that's something that you're interested in watching, do comment about it, and I will for sure make something on it. On Friday, expect a new team. I'm cooking something for the global challenge of May, so that will be interesting. Thank you for joining. See you on Friday.